Hello, everybody, and welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we take a look at the four pillars of modern misery anime gaming posting jobs. I'm Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
Joe, we got one of them guests. It's been over 10 episodes since we last had a guest. We used to do it like every 3.
Yeah. We stopped. And I think the reason was it just got away from us. I think that's the answer.
A lot of the peculiarities of how this show works, if you wonder why did they decide that, it was because like that week we were feeling down.
Yeah.
We were wrung out, folks. Anyway, we have a guest. Yeah. Joe, can you introduce our guest?
I will partially introduce them. I'll let you finish it off. But this is now someone... It's our favorite type of guest, which is someone much cooler than us, you know?
Yes. This is, I mean, for real, it's so cool.
It is very cool. We're very excited.
Whenever we see someone talk about anime sickos that I knew about before, and I was like, oh, whoa, that person's from before. It's like, oh, we've done it. We're infecting the real people. Like, we've been infecting the mooks before, but now like this is going to become an elite zombie. It's Mike Migdall. Mike, thank you for joining us.
I'm so flattered. My face lit up when you said that I was cool. I'm riding very high right now. And I can only imagine that this high is going to last for the next hour and a half.
I actually don't think it'll ever end.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know.
Looking back, I'm happy now. You guys said I'm cool.
Like, I don't know if you heard about this, but like any sort of boost in your mood is going to last forever. And the only way it wouldn't is if you are a damaged person and it went away because of your sins.
Yeah. In which case, your negative mood will last forever. Your depression will never end.
And you deserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, why would it last if you didn't deserve it, Joe?
That's some introspecting to do right now, actually.
Mike, introduce yourself to the class. If folks out there aren't like me, geniuses who knew about you from before, and they're just knowing about you right now, what should they know?
What should they know? I am a young man. I stand at 5'7.5". I just recently had a physical.
You have the hero's height like I do. That is wonderful.
The hero's height, yes. Is that because I've also that height makes us a good person? Or
I've also just heard it's I've been referred to as the leftist height, which I thought was funny.
Yeah. Couple short kings in the chat. I would say I kind of started out as a Chicago improviser, and I've kind of fallen into just being an online guy.
Yeah.
I do podcasts. I play Dak Rambo on the podcast Neoscum, which is a comedy, fantasy, actual play, role-playing podcast. We play Shadowrun. We're currently on a break right now. We recorded like 100+ episodes, and
these are sumptuous treats for the ears, folks. This is not like some chumps just cutting together fucking dialogue. Like 100 episodes of this shit is gonna blow your mind with the quality and the workmanship.
Thank you. That's very nice to hear. Right now, we're in this kind of like in-between period between our quote-unquote first season, which lasted 5 years. So I guess it's not really a season as much as it is a, what do you call a 5-year period of time? I feel like that's got to have like an era. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, era.
It was an era, and we're moving into a second era that we can't really talk too much about because it's kind of like nebulous. We have some ideas about what we're thinking about doing, but I don't think I have security clearance to talk about. But in the meantime, we're still like producing a lot of actual play type hashtag content on our Patreon, where we're playing like different TTRPGs, and making it dramatic with fancy editing, which I do. I've like become, I would say, a pretty decent audio editor. I know for the people who know Neoscum, Casey Tony is like the editing god. Mm-hmm. And I would say I've become in the shadows in editing demigod.
It's familiar.
I'm Casey's familiar. He's homunculus. Who does totter around his workshop looking for scraps of his ambrosia. And I drink that, and then
ambrosia, I want that ambrosia so bad, dude.
Oh my god, it's so cool. My favorite thing to do as an audio editor is to just we have this stock music library, and you can download all of these songs, which are made by real people who are cool, and I think have probably just fallen into this. They're trying to get their music monetized, so they sell it to a stock library. But these people are really cool, and they have their tracks that you can download, and then you can download individual stems from their audio.
What?
And when I realized I could do that, it just gives you so much control. You can really make things sound like they were made for your podcast. That's one of the things I learned from Casey's ambrosia, which he left on the ground of his workshop because he does suffer from depression, and it manifests itself with by having a messy workshop.
Yeah. Ambrosia it's everywhere. You're supposed to keep it in the golden cup.
Keep it in the golden cup or in the golden bins or coffers, please. I also post a lot online. I would say before I even got into podcasting stuff, which I got in through the One Shot Network, I was really depressed for a while, and I was having a rough time doing improv in Chicago, and going online and making jokes to strangers was how I took control of my narrative and was you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to get my laughs online. I'm going to get my validation. I'm going to get my faves. I'm going to get my fave star trophies. Do you know about fave star trophies?
Yes. I think they should come back. I think if Elon could do one thing to turn it all around, is he could bring back fave star.
I agree. Although I will say, I've seen the retification of Twitter get teased a little bit, where they're we're thinking about adding Reddit Gold or whatever these cringe ass Reddit awards to Twitter, which just seem totally awful. But Favestar is cool, or Favstar is how it's spelled. I've never said that word out loud.
Was that a separate company or part of Twitter?
I don't know. That's a great question, and I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah, it's paychecks were written at some point. It's just
Yeah. There was a handoff between Jack while he was at a meditation retreat in Bali, and Mr. Favestar gets $25 a month.
Home halfway.
But yeah, so I got a poster's brain.
Hell yeah, that's one of the best types. That's a prestige class of brain.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm trying to think of anything else. I'm getting married in a month.
Hell so yeah.
I've got wedding brain as well. Romance brain, if you will.
Aww. I hope it's delightful.
It's very stressful, and COVID is happening. COVID is forever happening. It's just not a good time right now. Also, we're recording this in Chicago, and it's super cold, and I can't exercise outside, and I can't really go to a gym just because I'm not trying to get COVID right before this wedding.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm really just becoming even more of Casey's homunculus in the apartment right now. All my stats are decreasing.
Yeah, the ambrosia has made you listless and logy. It gives with one hand, it takes away with the other.
I've become very wan.
The week
you hate to be wan.
The week leading up to my wedding, I did the same thing, which was just a self-imposed exile. I guess I'll just T-pose here.
Yeah, and then, just try not to clip through the walls.
Yeah, and it all worked out, and I'm sure it'll work out as well. But yeah, it's just funny planning this event because and I went through this. It was just the virus. You just have to you're just kind of always pushing that in the back because that's the game now.
There's two choices you have. One is because of the virus we can't do it, or it's just we're gonna do it and just take a deep breath and be maybe we'll be fine. Maybe of these chambers don't have bullets in them.
Yeah, this is my one time playing Russian roulette that I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna have another wedding, fingers crossed, and hopefully we all make it. Let's go.
Yeah.
It'll work out. I'm sending good vibes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We're delighted to hear the news. I'm choosing to believe you're just announcing it now here for the first time. Yeah. That's incredible.
I waited. I'm getting married to Eleni Sovajo, who does Neoscum with me. She plays Pox. I play Dak Rambo. Our characters are not romantically involved, so don't even think about that.
Don't draw it. Don't do it.
The players are, and it is nice. Also, totally unrelated, I got like very, very sick like 2 weeks ago with food poisoning. And that's like what started my real bad brain episode. And then the weather got really cold. So then I was like, I couldn't exercise. Yeah. Oh my God. I was really like, I was having a bad time. I couldn't even consume media. I was so sick. And you know, we love to consume media.
Literally, yeah, that is the titular slot, folks. And he said, "Don't give me any of that." Which you can tell that's a symptom of some bad shit.
Yeah, if I can't think of anything I want to look at on a screen, I know I'm in dark waters.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by all the tastiest little morsels of slop, and I didn't have the stomach for even any of it. I just bought a Blu-ray of the anime Big O, which would have been easy slop to consume, but
there's some really good eyebrows in that one, right?
It's basically just Batman the animated series, but way weirder.
Hell yeah!
And yes, there are good. It's like you can't see it, but
He's miming those how sometimes eyebrows have little horns and like antlers,
like Jafar, right? He has those types of eyebrows?
Yeah, Jafar. I assume Jafar has a mustache that's honestly pretty eyebrow like.
Yeah, so if we just move
it's just a line.
Up.
Yeah, all the characters have very queer coded eyebrows like Jafar's, I guess.
Mike, I'm segueing to another topic. I hear that you use your gamer's brain on a topic, on a hobby that often you wouldn't think to use to turn into an efficiency model, but you have done it. You've become a Goodreads sicko, and you have incredible KPIs.
Oh, you found the meta.
Yes, yeah. I'm not using the meta at all when I read a book like a dumbass.
I use Goodreads, and I've found that like using those websites where you like log the things that you do, just gamer style, it like freaking holds me accountable to like finishing them, and I like want to finish a book instead of like fall off because
that's a number. Ding, one finished book.
But yeah, I'm setting goals. I'm meeting the goals. I'm liking my friends' posts when they say they want to read a book. I'm liking their reviews. Hell, I'm even on occasion, I'm feeling brave enough to share my thoughts on a book, especially when it's like a small book and it doesn't have a lot of attention. And I'm sharing my thoughts if they're good thoughts. I'm not sharing my thoughts if they're bad thoughts. I don't want to like blow up some guy's spot for his book that has 15 reviews and be like, I hated this. Also, I think if I'm reading a book that only has 15 reviews, it's probably because I know I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've met, and I say met, but I haven't actually met these people. I have like Goodreads friends who I do not know IRL. I think one of my like superpowers is like making friends with people online. I've been making friends with strangers online since I was very young, when I made a friend with an interesting man who kidnapped me and took me around the world in his hot air balloon. That did not happen, but
it was just a car.
I've met a lot of people online, which I think is maybe like a hallmark of our generation of like people, kids who kind of figured out how the internet worked before their parents did.
Yeah.
Where you're able to like...
You know about forums.
Yeah, or like going on chat roulette before it just totally became like a website where you like look at penises that
It's a jerking off machine.
It's mostly for dicks.
Before it was for dicks, I was on chat roulette and I was like making friends with like strangers. I met, do you know Griffin Newman?
Yeah, he's Arthur on The Tick.
Yes, before he was Arthur, he was a guy on chat roulette. And I met him before that. And then I saw him in New York one time and we were like, chat roulette. Shout out to Griffin Newman. I also met the football player Golden Tate, who I think might be a bad guy. I'm not 100% sure, but this was all before. And I'm sorry if Golden Tate is not a bad guy, and I have now potentially cast doubt on his character. But what I'm trying to say is I've been on the internet for a long time. Naturally, I'm making friends on Goodreads. I'm finding weird indie book publishers. I'm reading their books. I'm then going from Goodreads and then becoming their friend on Instagram. And then I'm seeing their weird Instagram posts. And I'm like, whoa. This is a part of the internet that is very meticulously cultivated for me. And it does not give me bad brain because these are my wholesome, nice friends that I have made by reading books and who support me in reading books.
I gotta, because Joe joked about how you knew the meta, but it really does seem like you've unlocked the meta of Goodreads, which is wild to me because I don't use any of these logging consumptions and review sites like Letterboxd and Goodreads and the like. Is there? Because I imagine there has to be, but I can't. But at the same time, I can't imagine it being. Is there like clout wars on Goodreads? Are there like big readers who like don't cross like the voracious scribe or whatever because like they'll send their guys after you? Yeah, like there's a Ratatouille food critic who's gonna like sink your book with their like GIF laden review. That's one thing that really is like annoying. Before the recording, we were talking a little bit about Goodreads, and I believe you asked if there are like, did you ask if there were cringe content?
I was going to say,
Goodreads?
like, isn't it wild that it's a website about reading and then you look at the reviews and so many people really can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are really bad Goodreads reviews that are written, and the hallmark of a bad Goodreads review is that it uses GIFs. There will be like a review that will be like, and then this happened in the book, and it'll be like a GIF of, I don't know. There's a lot of GIFs that are, any GIF almost is immediately cringy.
Yeah. There's no one that reads as anything other than like, I am at least 40, probably more.
Yeah.
I love the shocked kitten that looks like it's putting its hand up to its gaping mouth as it looks from side to side.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's Goodreads reviews that have that, and it'll be like of Moby Dick, a book that is like incredibly legit and well written and has a storied history, and there will just be some Goodreads reviewer from like Utah who's like using Mark Cuban GIFs to like totally read.
And then there's a play in the
Moby
middle,
Dick.
and it's weird, right?
I honestly haven't read Moby Dick. I'm trying to read that
All I
this
know
year.
is that there's a play in the middle. That was my move.
Damn.
The one that I always bring up is I read Never Let Me Go by, can't remember name of author, and it's about their sci-fi where there's clones. It's like the islands, like Michael Bay, the island. There's clones that are grown to fucking be rich people's backup organs when they get ill. And we are from the point of view of one of the clones, and they're in a batch of clones that is given an experimental treatment where they're like educated like real people, and the thought is better treatment means better quality organs, whatever. Eventually they find out the horrible truth, and they just sort of come to terms with it. And a bunch of and it's very clear. Can't you see the moneyed class having introduced some sort of institution by which they can harvest the resources of the underclass, and the underclass has no social mobility and can't opt out of the system? Don't you see what the metaphor is? Anyway, so many people were like, I can't believe the characters never tried to destroy the system. Don't they know that this system is exploiting them, and yet they choose to participate in it? And I'm just like, do you have a job? Like, what? Like, do you not? Like, are you blind?
Yeah, I can think of a Patrick Star reaction GIF that I would use in response to those people.
Oh, GIFs. I love it.
But yeah, Goodreads is cool. I should be using Storygraph. That's the cool like less problematic alternative to Goodreads, because I think Goodreads is run by Amazon.
Oh, is that what makes it problematic? I didn't know if there was like something really saucy that I didn't know about.
I think that's as saucy,
okay,
at least to my knowledge. as it gets. But Storygraph is like a cool alternative. I just don't have as many friends on Storygraph. And I've cultivated all these weird relationships that, yes, I gotta convince Vit Babenko. Shout out to Vit Babenko on Goodreads. Follow Vit's reviews. But yeah, a cool thing on Goodreads too is that, say you discover like a cool, very indie published book, you can then find that author on Goodreads and then see what they're reading. And then be like, oh, these are the books that inspired the book that I liked. And you kind of go on this big chain and you end up with like 700 books on your to read that you could never read, but are all certified bangers because they're from the people that you look up.
That's smart. That's smart.
I kind of have been doing on every social media platform that I've ever been a part of. Like on Facebook in 2007, I was in high school and I became Facebook friends with Reggie Watts and Ben Schwartz.
They're famous.
And they're famous. They're really famous now. But in 2007, they were like, you could send them Facebook messages and they would respond. And I remember being like a teenager with a half-formed brain talking to Reggie Watts like late at night. And he was just very chill. And then Ben Schwartz, I like sent him a very try-hard message about like asking if he would want to collaborate on something for my like high school's TV show. And he so politely declined. And now he's Sonic.
He is Sonic.
Now I'm on Anime Sickos.
It's not animated, folks. They turned him into that. That's who he is now.
Not only is he Sonic, he had to tell Larry King about Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
That's so fucking good.
And through the transitive property, it's like I told Larry King about Sonic because we had that convo in 2007 on Facebook.
Yeah, yes, and we have a guest here today, Larry King.
And speaking of you being on Anime Sickos, Mike, I believe it's time that we have to ask the question, which this is another one of those classic Anime Sicko bits where like we've decided that this is a tradition, but like
you already said Big O.
You did already say Big O, but we have locked ourselves into having to repeat this segment that has long since lost any juice. There's no new answer to this, especially since our guests are always like fans because they asked to be on. So are you an anime sicko? That's the question. Are you an anime sicko? The answer is yes, you are.
It's a mere formality at this point. Yes, I'm an anime sicko, certainly by today's standards, and yesterday's standards too, but maybe not in the future. Maybe in the future they will call me normal guy, because it will be a society of anime sickos, and the term anime sicko will mean nothing. I will say I'm more of a manga sicko. I think I like to read just because I can read faster than I can watch a show.
Yes.
And when I'm watching Big O on my PlayStation 4, I just like have the R1 trigger like on speed dial to get through the like super long R&B outro, which is an amazing outro, by the way. Check out the Big O outro on YouTube. It is like it sounds like a musical that was made in like 1997, like a love song from that musical. Doesn't really have any place in Big O, at least as far as I've got it. Maybe the show's going to get way more romantic, but on disc 1, not really.
No.
Just a guy who's getting in a big mech every episode and then punching other mechs in the head.
The way he controls the mech from the inside really seems like there's only 2 like levers that he can push forward.
Yeah,
that's all he needs.
Before he can even activate any levers, his mech judges his soul in this sort of maybe lost in translation like catchphrase where it says like, "Cast in the name of God, ye not guilty." It says that every time he gets in the mech. So I assume it's like judging the worth of his soul.
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's like undeniably cool that like you put on a hat and the hat is like, You are an anime sicko. You may wear this hat.
This is not the same. This is a Harry Potter hat would not do this. It would be more lame. This is cool because at the end you get to drive a fucking mech. In Harry Potter, you put it on and you have to go to school in England. Like, you have to continue to be at their fucking awful Toad Island.
You gotta go, go to Hogwarts and have literal, slaves walking around your school, and
then don't do anything about it.
Yeah, and then not do anything about it because you're in Gryffindor and you're a cop in training.
Yeah, you're told all your spells, which are all different forms of gun, different flavors and levels of severity of shoot a beam out of your gun.
Mm-hmm.
Man, let's get off of this. I hate this fucking shit.
Fuck Harry Potter. Oh,
I just want to say very briefly, and this can be you don't even have to fucking respond. I was watching Murder, She Wrote after Angela Lansbury, sad to say, passed on from this world. And
rest in peace.
In the credits of one of the opening episodes, when they're given the fucking names of the actors in the episode, I see written exactly as the character from Neoscum spells it, Dak Rambo. And I about expired because I'm like, that's from a guy? That's a guy?
So I will say the way I spell Dak Rambo is without a C. It's just D-A-K Rambo. Well, it's not a coincidence. When the character was in utero of my imagination, I think I was watching some kind of Mystery Science Theater production that Dak Rambo was in, and I saw the name and I just started acting like that.
It's one of the
what
all-time
I thought the name
names.
sounded like, which is also just kind of Kurt Russell from Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I was roommates with Gannon and Casey, who also do Neoscum. And this was even before we had a podcast, and I would just kind of role play as this character. And then we started doing the podcast, and then people like you discovered that it's a real person who also, by the way, passed away from AIDS.
Oh, no.
And has a very tragic story. And to me, I just kind of flippantly took this name and then just ran with it. And then I was like, oh shit, this is a real guy. I feel kind of bad about this now. So it certainly made me realize that I was kind of playing with a history of this name, and it made me more conscious about just my choices and making sure that I was at the very least aware of the history of the name, and also kind of some of the implications. So shout out to the real Dak Rambo, rest in peace. Also, I think he has a twin brother named Dirk Rambo.
Oh, their parents were on fire, just
so cool,
popping off all-time classics one after the other.
I gotta just Google this to make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing. Dirk Rambo. Dak and Dirk Rambo.
Whoa.
Oh my god. And they're twins?
Oh. Double dose of Dak and Dirk.
Parents Beatrice Rambo and Lester Rambo. Joe, were you about to say something?
I was going to ask, because you had mentioned you prefer being a manga sicko more than, them moving pictures. Just what are you consuming?
I read Chainsaw Man. I'm up to date.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I got to go to Goodreads real quick.
So this is a fair question because there are the anime and manga versions of that, Analyst or whatever, but you're all in on Goodreads.
I guess because you are reading the comics.
Yeah, and you know what? You got those KPIs to hit on Goodreads. Manga, you can kind of just put them back.
Yeah. That's easy numbies. That's one of those achievements that's completed the tutorial. It's give me.
Are Zoo Books on there? Yes. I could get through those real quick.
Oh shit! Zoo Books is on there.
Joe, did you know? Oh my god! So we were hanging out with Dylan, previous Guesto, and he dropped some horrible knowledge on me that I it hurt to learn. Which is he got Zoo Books, he got the subscription when he was a kid. I didn't know anyone could. I thought it was just a story a story on the TV, make believe. He got the subscription.
Is he rich? Is he a rich child?
But he got Prince could afford Zoo Books.
yeah. I don't know where he got this money, but he got Zoo Books, and it was to hear him tell it as wondrous as they made it look. And so he cajoled whomsoever is able to pay for another year of subscription. And here's where it gets devastating. They don't make new zoo books. There's just 12.
What?
They just... A year subscription is just they send you all 12 of the zoo books really slow.
But they're already out? They're just like...
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Pleasure... withhold what is it when you just like are microdose zoo books that you could just be consuming all in one go? I guess there's a puritanical honor in
fuck off
delaying.
There is, and it becomes like, I don't know, psychosexual.
I mean, now that I think about it, how do they like, they're like showing in the commercial like the elephant issue, and it's like, well, if they have it to film for the ad, then obviously I already missed the month that they put that out. So I'll never see the elephant issue.
You'll get the elephant issue, and it'll come right after the dinosaur issue, which is bullshit because they weren't there.
They don't know.
There's only 12 issues of zoo books. Are they trying to like recreate the Zodiac? Is that what they're doing?
We gotta make this a thing, because what I always find very funny is when I read like tarot cards, the mystical deck that lets you divine vibes and such, was like invented for playing gambling games in Europe in 1800. I'm like, what? I would have thought it was like from the ancient times. So why, if tarot was able to get to this level, I think that we can also make an astrological belief system around zoo books, and it will become as valid.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's like a Fallout 6 thing. Like you go to a bunker where there's like
thinking that it was like
this was the zoo books production company, but then like some prepper gave birth to another person who gave birth to another person who then grew up there thinking that they were like demigods, and they're like the teachings of the dinosaur show me.
They definitely think the creatures of the zoo books are coming one day.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the crazy thing is that they're right.
Yes.
They get vindicated somehow because of something that happens on the other side of the map that you unlock later after the big event that you can't go back from. What manga am I reading?
We did ask that.
I in the past year, I read the entirety of Dororo, which I think I'm saying right.
That's a Tezuka. That's one of the old classics.
Yeah, it was. I might get roasted for this. I thought it was kind of mid. It kind of reminded me of like if Popeye was about like a demon cursed Ronin and a small scamp who go around feudal Japan fighting demons and stuff. And
you're not making this sound mid. You're making this sound extremely good.
Well, that's the thing is that it has really good moments where you're just like, oh, holy crap, like this little kid is running around, has got such an attitude and is talking to these like feudal like Japanese warlords with much disrespect. We love that. But then just the way that the story is just like also very juvenile. At the end of the day, I'm like, okay, this is written for children.
Yeah. I
should not be looking for great revelations from this. That's a me problem. So for me as an adult reading this, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Which is how I think we all feel about anime. Very frequently, where you watch something and you're like, this is horrible.
Like everyone's trying to get me to watch Akiba Maid War, and like it's actually really good. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it is, but like it's always gonna be about maids. Like there's no goodness level that will make Akiba Maid War not be about maids. Yeah. So no matter what happens, I'm going to have to like reckon with like I am engaging with the weird maid fetish that just it's a gross thing I sort of disagree with on a fundamental level.
You know, it's got a really good story. The post game to the Dead or Alive volleyball game.
Oh my God! I remember seeing those in the PC Gamer in like 2002, and I didn't know how to feel about the Dead or Alive volleyball. I was like, this is a game? Like, voice cracking. I'm like, wasn't even bar mitzvahed yet. And felt like I was seeing something I should not see.
All the writing for it was so, like, disgusting. It was just like, as you know, this will make you insanely horny.
That's a real thing. I had no idea. And would you mind sending me just the name of that after this? Just so I can make sure that I don't look at it.
Oh yeah, because you got to have your blacklisted terms.
Yes. Yeah. I got to go Dan White mode on that. I read. I'm up to date. I think on Die Dark.
Ooh yeah.
Which you guys did an episode on.
Oh, we sure did. We love Die Dark.
Top tier. Very, very delightful.
Don't you love when they just say video game words like they're normal?
Yes. Why?
Good. So good.
Why be so fussy about it? Just
show me the shopkeeper and how much all the weapons cost. Don't just do it.
The shopkeeper says, "Do you want something to increase your attack or your defense?" It's like, oh yes, not to make you stronger or protect you, but to make your stat go up.
I'm reading Spy Family. I know that there's a lot more, but I'm enjoying it. That's there for me when I need more. Ya boy Kong Min.
Oh, I know that's supposed to be really good. I don't know. I didn't know that was also a manga. I know the anime was a big hit.
See, I didn't know that was an anime, but I went in blind and I was like, this is cool. I don't need to keep reading. I've been reading Kaiji, which
that's the gambling.
The gambling one.
Yeah.
And I also read that gambling book that I think you guys covered. Gambling addiction book, Addiction by Design.
No, we didn't talk about that. We don't read books really about smart guys. Yeah.
We did Graeber's Debt once. That was our one.
We talked about how gambling sucks, but we didn't have any primary sources. It was just like, don't you think this shit's boring? Don't you hate the casino and Dragon Quest?
Oh my God. Maybe it was a different podcast. I just know people have been buzzing about this book on my Twitter sphere. I didn't know if you guys talked about it or not, but I read this book, this nonfiction book called Addiction by Design, Machine Gambling in Las Vegas, and I took that and jumped into Kaiji, which is the gambling manga, and basically gambling is bad.
It's bad. Sucks ass.
But it's like,
that's the main thesis.
It's like gambling, but he's like wagering his life every time, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's
vibes.
fair to call him a gambling addict, because the reason he's gambling is because a murder guy is gonna kill him otherwise. He's gotta gamble.
The loan sharks are forcing him to do gambling. The big takeaway from that Addiction by Design book is basically that people don't really gamble with big stakes anymore. The majority of gamblers are doing like very small, low stakes gambling that takes a long time, and then you're kind of guaranteed to lose. But what you're paying for is just
the experience,
a distraction. Yeah. It's basically Vampire Survivors, but it's way more predatory. It doesn't just take your time; it takes your money as well.
The numbers don't go up either; they go down.
And if they do go up, that just means that they've gone up right now. Until the inevitable going down happens, and people aren't even really gambling to win. That was an interesting book. I'm realizing manga, one volume of, and then like moving on and being like, I'm good, I got the gist. But shout out to Fujimoto. All of Fujimoto's one shots are really dope.
Mike, you play a game that is very confusing and scary to me. It is Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress, to me, seems like a horrible enterprise software that is designed to make you go insane. I don't understand what part is the game. I look at it and I truly don't understand what part you interact with or what you do. What it seems like, it's a system that's designed to create extremely unlikely stories about how like you made your cow pastures too close to the weavers, and then so the cows ate a lot of textiles, and then they started making plaid milk, and then the dwarves who drank the plaid milk turned plaid, and then they wrote 95 theses about how non-plaid dwarves are no good, and then they invented a new world religion about plaid, and like then you post about, like, that's what the game is for. I don't know how to play the game, and It's made of letters. It used to be made of letters only. What is it? I'm so scared.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It is a plaid milk procedural narrative game. You're trying to make your plaid milk and find the meaning in that. It's a procedural colony sim.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound legit?
Yeah.
Yes, those are words.
I feel like there's a lot of words that get bandied about when trying to describe Dwarf Fortress. The best description I've seen from one of the creators, Tarn Adams, who made the game with his brother, Zach Adams, is that it is a tool that is there to aid in your own story creation that comes from your own brain. It's there to kind of like stimulate your imagination and give you something to kind of play off of. And for me, I would say like ever since I was little, my reoccurring like fantasy activity that I would always play, and I don't know if this is something that everyone does or if this is what other people called it, but in my head I called it Guys. I would play this game called Guys.
Correct.
Did you guys play Guys?
I know exactly what you mean by Guys.
I mean, tell me, because maybe, but the name, I didn't use this nomenclature, so maybe I just don't have the words. Tell me about Guys.
So
you become various guys.
You become various guys. I would go over to my neighbor's house, Steven. Steven had way more toys than me. Like, I had a fair amount of toys. I'm not trying to say that I didn't have a nice childhood, but Steven had so many toys, and I had other neighbors who had like, I was always going to neighbors' houses and playing Guys with their toys, and they weren't always playing Guys with me. Sometimes they would just leave, and then I would be playing with their toys, and I would like come up with stories for these guys. And one of the reoccurring fantasies was that I would build a base of guys, and then their base would be under siege, and
by other
they would
guys.
go into these big war with other guys, and there'd be lots of intrigue and romance and highs and lows and tragedy. And in my head, I remember it with this like religious fervor and like just a very idealized memory. And I'm sure if I were to go back, it would be like dog shit, like child's improv, just taking stuff from like TV and stuff, which, I still do, but
I remember this reminds me of my niece. She's older now, but when she was very little, her big thing is she asked everyone to play Littlest Pet Shop with her, and everyone who knew you never. And if anyone's like, "Oh, I'll play," it's like, "Oh, we'll see ya, bye," and you're just like, "Huh?" And what it was is she would get her little toys, and she would slowly build a scene, and you couldn't say anything you're doing, so you had to watch, and then she would have the scene set up, and she would then explain the situation up to now and what will happen. And if you make the mistake of being like, "Oh, okay, now that I know what like the beats are for this scene, let's play through it," and she's like, "No, you seem to think that I'm describing a game that we're about to play. The game is me telling you this," and it lasts for about half. Like it's all about like some conceptual theater that may happen one day. It's happening in your mind. I'm not actually going to stage the show. I feel like I'm getting a lot of those vibes from Guys.
That's a proto Dwarf Fortress. Joe, what were you going to say?
I really identify with the idea of Guys, but the thing that I think I was more leaning into is like you seem really like caught up with like the story, like what are these guys doing, like whatever, like there's a story here. I was like just obsessed with like the base part, like the idea that there would be hideouts or there's like some sort of hidden thing that I could build. That was like what I was obsessed with. Tunnels for that same reason. I was really into ant farms for that reason.
Oh my god. Dwarf Fortress is a glorified ant farm simulator, like down to its core. That's like the main driving thing when I play Dwarf Fortress, which is a very adult evolution of Guys. It's like when you return to your hobby that you enjoyed as a child, but with like the resources of a more developed brain.
But Guys leveled up while you were gone.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. And you are basically building towards this big invasion that's going to happen. Like the end game of Dwarf Fortress is that eventually like there will be big waves of like goblins, and you might meet a forgotten beast, which are these like procedurally generated, just totally overpowered monsters that within the game, before the game even starts, there's like 100 years of history that's created.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that's what's so cool about these. Like, so I played Dwarf Fortress when it was ASCII, and I didn't mean I played it well. It was just like letters and shit. But the part that I was like jaw open like an idiot was the world generation before you start. I was so impressed by that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you get this 100 years of history? How do you interface with it? What do you do with it? How's it work?
I don't 100% know. And I've been playing this game since like 2009. In the new Steam version, I'm going to be honest, there is so much that I don't know about Dwarf Fortress, even though I've been playing it so much, and I'm like, I begged you guys to like let me come on here and talk about Dwarf Fortress. I also was like, I don't really feel qualified to talk about Dwarf Fortress.
It has like an unbelievably high skill ceiling though. Like it's a forever game.
Yeah, it's the ultimate version of guys.
Yeah.
Like there is no end to it. You will always be learning something new. They're always releasing new little like modular game mechanics. But there's that 100 years of history, and you will have dwarves who have memories about things that happened before the game started for you, and they will be creating. My favorite part of the game is when they create art, which is inspired by things that they experience. Like in my fortress, I've been streaming a little bit, and I've kind of shifted to only playing Dwarf Fortress on stream because I feel like I'm witnessing history, and I need an audience there to also witness the history with me.
It's the
because
ant farm.
Otherwise, I'm just like the guy from Blade Runner who's like, I've seen things you wouldn't imagine, and like, imagine if that guy had like 20 people in a Twitch chat also watching like these
stars
moons of Jupiter exploding or whatever. He'd be way happier. He wouldn't try to kill Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
If he just had like 20 Twitch subscribers who were like dropping F in the chat when he like killed rival androids. Yeah. But what the fuck are we talking about?
This seems very interesting to me because you're describing computer generated, randomly generated art in a way that is so pleasant. Just even as a non-player of this game, I'm just like, that's so cool, and I like it. But like, AI art not in a Dwarf Fortress sucks ass. You see, there's no intentionality behind it. There's no guys.
I would say, yes, as a piece of computer-generated art, that's what it is. But I associate Dwarf Fortress more with like, sort of like, I am witnessing a living, breathing system. And because like the appeal is you're seeing all these elements play with one another and like respond and interact, that's not like present with the AI art shit, right? It's just like a big titty lady.
Yeah, it's one of those fucking 90s electronics with the clear so that you can see the stuff inside. So you see what's happening. You see what's going in, what little choices are going into it, and it makes it come out fun.
Oh, you mean the Tiger Electronics thing?
There's so many clear plastic electronics. There's a phone
Mad
you could
Cat's,
see in.
Mad Cat controller.
There was the fucking Game Boy, the clear Game Boys. There was the iMac with the back where you could see in.
Why did we stop that color scheme? That was fine.
It was really good.
So I think that's definitely due for a big resurgence. Once the money people realize that they can tap back into that, it's going to come back in a big way.
Like I saw someone posting, like, how is it that no one's made a clear smartphone? And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I want one so bad. Like, I want a clear smartphone. I want to see the stuff inside. Like, show me the stuff inside.
Dwarf Fortress, what were we talking about?
Okay. I still am so ignorant of this game and how it's played that I truly want you, and I want you to make sure that you understand that I'm not doing this as like a metaphor. Like, I really mean exactly what I'm saying. What is the method by which you play the game? Because you're talking about like, it's a system. The guys are doing this, and it's like, do you play it? Like, do you do something?
Go sicko mode on the logistics right now.
I should start by saying, I think at the root of guys, and what I enjoy the most about video games in particular is I like having a story happen in a way that feels unique and is personal.
Yes.
And when I play like a JRPG or something, you know, you're kind of getting a narrative that is very like you're getting the same narrative that everyone else is getting. And you don't really have control over the writing and the tone, and you're kind of just interpreting it. And you can do like secondary interpretations of like themes and whatnot. But with Dwarf Fortress, you really kind of are able to find your own stories in as deep of a way as you want to. So like when I turn on Dwarf Fortress, I typically get overwhelmed immediately. I start going around the map. I start clicking on like a bird, and I'm like looking at this bird, and I'm like reading the bird's personality, and I'm like, okay, I spent 45 minutes like looking at animals and just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And the driving thing that I always come back to is like, I want to build a nice home for these dwarves. So there's kind of that like Minecraft mechanic where you are building, in this case, a dwarf fortress, which typically, you know, dwarves build underground. They have burrows. They like to drink. So you got to make your dwarves happy. You got to give them a nice home. What I always end up doing is, even though the dwarves, you know, they like to be underground, I kind of get obsessed with building a giant tower that just goes up to the heavens, which you can also do. And I will, even though the dwarves don't really like to be outside too much, I will like construct this Tower of Babel to the heavens. And I will say a decent amount of the fun for me is not quite knowing how the mechanics work. Like when I get to a point where I have to learn how a mechanic works because the game is delivering me an ultimatum where it's like, you need to figure out how silk works, or else your one dwarf will snap and go on a killing spree because they need silk to create something that they have spontaneously decided that they want to make because they've entered a fey mood or a strange mood, which is a mechanic that's delightful.
Yeah, this is when Joe and I decided to do a podcast. Imagine if there was no microphones.
Yeah, you would be so frustrated that you couldn't make anime sickos that you would probably do something drastic or evil. But the game is constantly telling you, hey, if you don't learn how this works, you're going to have all of your dwarves die.
Absolutely. For me, when I played, the wall I kept running into is like, Mike had mentioned that like you can get invaded. Like there's goblins and shit that come from obviously like above ground. But the other issue is that you can dig too far and then there's like fucked up shit and unknowable horrors underneath you. The thing that like I had to like learn quickly, and I did not do it successfully, was like lava management.
Oh my God, that is in itself one of the biggest like existential threats to your dwarf fortress if you're in a lava-y place.
Yeah. So like that's an example of like a dwarf was just doing his job, and then like lava started to come through the wall, and it was just like, oh shit. So if I don't figure out what I'm doing with this, it's game over. And it was game over because I did not figure it out.
So I asked, how do you play? You did not answer. You briefly mentioned that you click on things, and this is how little I know. That was new information to me. I thought maybe this was a keyboard and typing only game. When you said build, do you take your little fucking clicker and click on where you want blocks to go, or do you tell your dwarves to build something?
So yes, you do have some degree of control over what your dwarves do, but unlike a RimWorld, like if you want your guy to go attack a monster, you don't really have that control. You kind of have to, at least the way that if I wanted my dwarf to go attack a specific threat, I would create a squad and then tell that dwarf to go down to wherever the threat was. And then that dwarf would spontaneously start fighting with that thing because it would recognize that it's a threat.
Okay.
I think maybe I should just tell a story of something that happened, and that will naturally kind of explain how the game is played.
I'm time for bed. Bedtime story, please.
So, making your fortress, the driving action is at least, so probably the common player is you want to make your dwarf safe because you know that there is this like lots of existential threats that could come from above, the goblins, you know, wild animals that are dangerous. There's like zombies. There's so many different like threats that can happen. So you want your fortress to be secure. Yes. I am building this tower above ground just because aesthetically I'm like, you know, I think that's cool. I want to build a big tower. And how great would it be if this tower had like crenellations that archer dwarves could shoot from? Oh, I would be so safe because the threats that come that can like tear down walls don't come until like you've played a ton, unless you're in a really scary zone. And I'm in like the baby zone. I'm in a place where I don't have to learn how farming works. Because all of the trees have apples or apricots or walnuts. And I get all of my food from just like harvesting these apples, which my fortress has now become very well known for their like delicious cider and whatnot. And I'm like,
how did you know that? Like what part of the game tells you that?
Well, that's kind of me reading into it. But the thing is, in that tower, I built a tavern, and that tavern serves the cider that I made. And I get bards and villagers coming from like other places, and they recite poetry and they get drunk. And I assume that they're coming because we've become kind of this culture hub. But I get back to the main point, which is that I was trying to prepare for this big cataclysmic, like eventual reckoning where my fortress would be under threat. So what do I have to do that? I build my tower, I build my crenellations. I need to train a military to be able to use crossbows. Yes. Okay, I see that there's a thing that you can build that's like a crossbow target. Great. I build the crossbow target. I assign that zone as like a training zone. I assign 2 dwarves. I've got like 15 dwarves. I assign 2 dwarves to become my like militia. And I don't know how the fuck that works. I don't know how to make them equip the correct things. So I'm like struggling to try to get them to pick up crossbows instead of just like using their fists and becoming amazing wrestlers, which is like, I think the default. They just become great grapplers unless you tell them to put stuff on. So I eventually figure out through trial and error and like reading really old, outdated forum posts, I get them to hold crossbows that I built out of bone, the bones of like, you know, random animals that we've butchered, which is its whole other mechanic. But these dwarves then go into training mode with these crossbows, but they don't use arrows. I can't get them to pick up arrows.
Oh my God.
So the way that they train with the crossbows is they just use the crossbows as hammers. They use them as blunt force weapons. And they get really good at using them as blunt force weapons. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. I built a wall around the tower. I have like such a delightful like little fortress that's like pleasing the 8-year-old in me that loves like Legos and stuff. And my guys just won't, for the love of God, like figure out. And by the way, the god in this realm is called like Bazgul, the laughing dwarf or something. Like that's like the main god of the pantheon that's been generated for this world. That's a whole nother thing, that there's like specific gods and deities, and I won't get into that. But anyway, these guys are really good at grappling, and I realize that if I want them to start shooting crossbows, I have to make them hunters. I have to take away their military responsibilities and make them hunters, because at least when they're hunting, they will use the crossbow. I'm like reading forum posts to try to figure out how I can get them to train. Turns out no one knows. No one knows how to get the dwarves to like train as military crossbow people. And if someone figured that out, great. I didn't see it. And it seems like a large portion of Dwarf Fortress players also didn't see that. So I make them hunters full time. Now, as a hunter, they are going outdoors, which they don't like, and they are firing their crossbow at like the local fauna, which are like,
and they want to just smash them with the crossbows. Probably
they probably do, but now at least they've picked up bolts and they are firing their crossbows, but they're not good at it, and they for some reason can only hold 25 bolts. So they're taking these like pot shots at like deer and these like exotic lemurs that are in our biome, and out of the 25 bolts that they have, they're maybe hitting and landing blows like twice, which is not enough to kill animals, but it's enough to like really fuck them up.
Jesus.
So we've got animals that have been like shot through the throat and are just slowly dying. And the thing is, once the dwarves run out of the bolts, they cancel their job and they stop hunting and they go back home. So we've got these like on my map in my game.
Oh my God.
We've got tons of animals that are slowly dying around the map.
Oh my God.
And as they're dying, their like body is slowly shutting down and they're puking and they're vomiting. And my map is covered in vomit from these animals that are like slowly dying. And then the most fucked up part is that I'm pretty sure that half the time my dwarves aren't harvesting the animals when they do die. I think they're just like leaving these rotting animals covered in vomit around the map. And they do become really good at archery. Some of these dwarves become like legendary archers, but they also become incredibly depressed because I've like accidentally set them on this kind of like cause and effect depression slope where they started out as these militia people and I made them train too hard. So they're already upset. And now they have memories of being upset, which come back. And then I make them go outside and they're hunting and I'm making them hunt all the time. They don't like that. They don't like being outside, period. And they don't like seeing vomit and dead animals. Unless they have like weird personalities. But I only had like 15 dwarves and I'm pretty sure the 2 dwarves that I had were not even inclined to go into like military activity on their own. And they become so upset that eventually they request a guild hall where they're like, look, we're really good at archery. We're all pissed. You've got to like build us a guild hall. So on the top of my tower, I build this like beautiful with like gold that I have smelted. I build this like golden platform and I tell one of my dwarves like make a statue and they make a statue of a skunk. And I put that statue up in the middle of their guild hall. And now they're a little happier and they are like they give lectures to the other dwarves about like animal trapping.
What?
And it's just so in depth and everything happens for a reason. All of these dwarves, if you like go into their like personality tabs, they will say like what are the things that are like making them happy. And I don't really know how some of these mechanics work in a way where I feel sometimes like how medieval people probably felt about like animals that didn't live in their biome when like a traveler is like, oh yes, I
saw an elephant and it had a huge snake on its head. Yeah,
it was a dragon or something. Yeah. And like that level of like superstition is what I come into the game with, where like when things happen, it feels almost like I'm witnessing magic or like a religious intervention from a god that I have no control over. So I have just enough control to like poke the game and then the game spits something back at me. And I'm like, okay, I guess the narrative implications of all of these animals slowly dying and vomiting everywhere is that my dwarves are just really fucking weird.
They used to live in their skunk hall and give little lectures. What I'm getting, and this is why I guess Dwarf Fortress is such a scary and intimidating game to me, is that it really seems like so much shit is happening that you aren't doing and can't stop. Like I'm playing fucking the One Piece JRPG. That is a real piece of shit. The only good thing in it is that it's got the One Piece guys. And well, folks, I'll keep playing that garbage as a result. It is so nothing. There is like you are barely involved as a player. You may as well just be holding up the entire time for all the input you have and all the effect you can have beyond just do next thing. And like that's what I'm used to right now. And the idea that there is a game where like again, it does sound like there is a shit ton of spells being cast under the hood, and you're never allowed to check what spells they are. And you can try to like stick your hand into the box of pain and like do something, but like chances are you have no idea what gesture you think that you even want.
Every dwarf has individual health for every digit in their hand and foot.
Fucking
Christ.
Christ.
One of the biggest revelations that I had was when I was like, as I mentioned, dwarves can be struck by like these special moods where they feel inspired, which is such a brilliant mechanic because like what a way to capture how people make art.
Yeah.
In a numbers way, like you're quantifying art in a way that somehow feels good and like realistic. After I had a dwarf who like, this is a whole big story on its own, but my militia captain in particular was so depressed because she was training all the time with her crossbow, like smashing shit with the crossbow. And I was like, I gotta figure out how to fix this because she's gonna explode. So I like took her off duty. I figured out a way to like only have her on duty some of the time. So she, in her free time, she liked to craft and create things, and she gets struck by a fell mood. So she goes to this metal crafting station. She claims it. You don't have control over them when they do that. They act on their own, and they need particular things to make the thing that's in their head.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then you're fucked. So she wanted silk, as I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how silk farming worked, so I have to go onto a forum and read the wisdom of the ancients who have played Dwarf Fortress before you and are trying to explain shit. And I'm like, okay, you get silk by going deep into the earth until you find a cavern where spiders are, and then your dwarfs will harvest spider silk.
Okay.
But as you mentioned earlier, deep in the caverns, that's where you find scary things. So I've got this militia captain who, if she doesn't get what she wants, she's the most capable of destroying the other dwarves if she goes into a bad mood. So I've got this existential threat. So I'm like,
oh my God,
hastily burrowing into the earth, trying to find silk. And I eventually get to a cavern, like going 20 levels under the earth, incredibly far. And normally I'm like, I play very cautiously. I don't do anything without like making traps and whatnot. This, I just had to go into the earth because the trap was inside the house.
Yeah.
And I find the cavern, and I don't know how to get my guys to go down into the cavern. I'm doing this on stream too, so I've got like people helping me. I figure out how to do it, and my dumbass has children turned on for all activities. So now I've got like 20 dwarf children who are going into this dangerous place to go like harvest spider silk.
They're gonna get traumatized.
They're gonna get traumatized. So I'm like, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna conscript like 10 dwarfs who have never done military stuff and just go station them downstairs. I do that all like much quicker than I would like to. These dwarves, I don't know how to quickly tell them to go pick up weapons. So like half of them don't have weapons, but they have like military designation, so they will try to fight things. And I station them kind of around the kids to protect them. And then like these troglodytes, these little like Dobby motherfuckers who I've never seen before and are hostile. And apparently online tells me that they are not a threat.
Oh no.
They are a threat if your dwarves have no weapons and are just like, have no military training and are just like in this slap fight with these little dwarves who are, or these little troglodytes who are like biting chunks out of their muscles, which is like what happened in the combat. It's very specific. Like their digits will get damaged. I've got dwarves that are like bleeding out on the ground who've been killed by this like level 3 minor enemy. And it's all because I need silk. So the kids harvest silk. They go upstairs. They get this lady, the militia captain, the silk that she needs. And I end up like sealing off the bottom after having to figure out how to rescue dwarves who have been like incapacitated. And of course, by sealing off the bottom, I couldn't get the dwarf to do it the right way. So he sealed it with himself on the wrong side of the door. And then his dumb ass just goes to sleep on the ground because he can't get back to his home. And I like can't get him to like create a staircase up. Somehow I've like caved it in. It's all fucked. But this military lady, she ends up making this beautiful like black bronze warhammer. And it's got like all these different components because it had silk on it, which is like not something you would think a warhammer needs, but I guess the grip was silk. And it has a very detailed description about it. And afterwards I clicked on her and I saw that she had in her inventory, or like on her body, she had tears that were equipped to her eyes. And I was like, oh dear God, she's crying.
What the
She's weeping because she's had this cathartic artistic experience. And I'm like realizing that so have I. Like I've been, if I haven't, I've at least witnessed it. And I am.
Doesn't that shit make you want to play this? Like every Dwarf Fortress story I hear gets me excited.
You are selling me on it. The only thing I was gonna say the only thing I'm afraid of is that it's so impenetrable that like I know there's a chest that I can get to with a magical treasure inside, but I'm afraid that it's gonna be so difficult I'll never get to the chest, and I'll find it and I won't know how to open it. But I'm realizing now, as you're telling this story, that which was the fuel for this grand tale was in fact your own incompetence. Like that was what made it happen.
Yeah, and I feel like tabletop role playing. A big thing that happens is like you roll your die and you either succeed or you fail. But even if you fail, like that is an interesting thing that happens and your story is better for it. And I feel like some games that are not like Dwarf Fortress do that really well. Like obviously Disco Elysium, a great game about failure. You're playing Pentiment. We were talking about that earlier.
Man, Pentiment.
Another great game about failure. Dwarf Fortress, also a great game about failure because you're going to like losing is the fun is the tagline.
Yeah. To be honest, the losing is fun mentality, because I Dwarf Fortress is a very old game. Like its development started, I don't know, when I was probably in high school, and that got me this idea that losing is fun. That was the bite that like got me into roguelikes, which is just like, oh, failure's fine. Like the point of the game is losing, so it's fun forever. And like if you have that approach to Dwarf Fortress, all this crazy shit going wrong isn't bad. It's like the point.
Yeah. That's my mentality towards sports fandom as well. Because like Dwarf Fortress, it's a simulation that's kind of happening mostly outside of your control.
Yeah.
And the way that you interpret like how your team does and the narratives that you kind of pull from a season of whatever sport that you're watching, it's the same muscle that you use when playing Dwarf Fortress, although you have less control over it unless you're playing a game like or following along with like blaseball, which is a very unique sporting experience.
That shit was so intimidating.
I'm just not cool enough for that. I was just like, I don't know what this is. I'm gonna read the Dragon Ball wiki.
Dragon Ball also similarly, I'm sure you can observe like it's a sport. Although I feel like you typically know the outcome.
Yeah, Goku.
You know what?
I'm gonna have a great time. That's the outcome.
Yeah.
With blaseball, which is very similar. Are you totally like unfamiliar with it?
I literally no knowledge other than the name, and that every time everyone's talking about Jessica Telephone on my fucking timeline.
It's a John Boy's thing, right?
I think it's like John Boy's like adjacent.
Okay, yeah. All I know is that it's like something you can do online. I don't know where the inputs and the responding comes from though.
So there's like a website that runs these baseball simulations with players that have stats, and you watch the games happen online, like you're watching like a box score that's updating with like little like play-by-play whatever. And the fun part comes in the way that you like, one, you're betting on the games to acquire coins that you can then spend in elections that shape the game and like try to like win boons for your team.
Okay.
And in blaseball's heyday, it happened like right as COVID shut down all real sports.
Yeah.
So it was like the perfect time to give a very restless group of online people something to like kind of
bond over,
satiate. Yeah. Although I will say blaseball is like very good at pulling in people who are not normal sports fans into something that is sports adjacent.
Yeah, it was everyone was talking about Jessica Telephone was giving off huge theater kid vibes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing where it's like you find meaning in the simulation, and like you'll see a character's name, Jessica Telephone, and then the team that has Jessica Telephone will have a Discord where they're all like talking about lore and kind of creating lore by committee and making fan art. And then the fan art will inspire the lore. Cause like, let's say one person's fan art is really dope. Then that kind of becomes like
that's her design.
Lot of people's idea of Jessica Telephone. But the nice thing is that you can have headcanons about these characters and create whoever you want within them if you're trying to like do it by yourself. I actually got really into blaseball, and my team was the Mexico City Wild Wings, which was like a very small team that I picked specifically just because I liked the colors. It was like orange, and I thought the name was funny.
It is.
And I joined this like Discord server, which I'm like also not really a Discord guy. And I kind of like tentatively stepped into a very small private like channel on this like larger Discord thing, and kind of became friends with strangers, which is a theme in my life.
Your skill, your knack.
Yeah, and I found a blaseball player on that team who sucked. This guy was a pitcher. His name was Bert Gonzalez. He fucking sucked. No one on the team, I could tell, like, no one on the Discord channel gave a shit about him because they were all talking about the other characters. So I was like, hey, do you guys mind if I like make a Twitter account to roleplay as this guy? And they're like, sure, yeah, whatever. And then like right after I did that, this guy started to become really good.
Okay, is there some like seed, like is there like a Ouija board hand behind the wheel? Is someone on the back end like writing in like plot lines?
Yeah, the devil.
Yeah, the devil, aka the game band, which is producing the game. They do have like overarching narratives, and like they're kind of like the game master, coming up with these like big worldwide events that's happening and like changes to the game mechanics. Like they come up with the changes that you can then vote on. And I'm sure there's some degree of people being like, are they forcing things to happen? You never really can tell. Like the Mexico City Wild Wings had one season where they like inexplicably won the championship, and they weren't the best team. And it's like, that's also the magic of sports. Like anyone can win. But there's definitely people out there who are probably like, oh, it was rigged. But you know, there's people like that about the NBA. There's people like that about the NFL or whatever. But this character, Bert Gonzalez, I like created the Twitter account, and I kind of like would just live tweet as this character, like role playing on the Twitter account, which is maybe one of the best role playing experiences you can have, is like role playing via social media. But it also was very interesting because you're kind of like reacting in real time, and you never know if a character is going to die. So you'll be like,
oh yeah, because you can get incinerated in blaseball. Yeah, people can die, people can switch teams, people can get like replaced by alternate versions of themselves. It's very like, I don't want to say cute because that sounds like condescending, but it's fun. It's cheeky.
And what started out as, you know, me just doing bits where my guy kept getting like locked in bathroom stalls and then like requesting people to help, like other teammates to like let them out of the bathroom stall. I then like very quickly had to role play like the loss of a friend, the death of an ally. And this is happening during COVID, and I'm like role playing a character going through grief, like while everyone is collectively experiencing this like worldwide grief event.
Man, your relationship with games and slop is a lot heavier than mine. Holy shit. I never have these.
I just really like stories, and I like finding the story in like any game that I play. And with Dwarf Fortress or blaseball, I kind of like just treat the stuff that's coming out as like, I have a big suspension of disbelief. If something sucks, I will do the mental gymnastics to be like, oh, actually it rocks, because like all of these reasons of things that, you know, you could critique, if you like lean into it, you're like,
that's such a
getting more out of your investment.
More than being left-handed, that is a bigger indicator of genius IQ than anything else. Like
being able to just decide.
It's good
to just decide. Like I'm having a good time here, okay? And like there are you know, there's this threshold that's gonna make my switch flip, but until then, I'm gonna use my armor class and take no damage.
It helps with blaseball. It helps with rooting for the Washington Wizards, which I do. I'm like the only Washington Wizards fan that I know. It helps with playing Dwarf Fortress because, you know, people are vomiting and dwarves are dying, and you're just like, this is happening because of me. Mm-hmm. Nope, this is happening because this is the story that's happening. Yeah. But I also recognize that the ability to like find the meaning, to like swing things into a positive, is also dangerous in a cog setting. Where you're like, oh, my work situation really fucking sucks, but haha, like, what if it doesn't?
Right.
What if I'm just happy at my job?
Yeah.
Like, I just read this book about like Chicago labor history, and my biggest takeaway is that like you have to be as antagonistic to your manager as possible, mm-hmm. and you have to get all your coworkers to be antagonistic to your manager, mm-hmm. and you basically have to be in a constant state of warfare with like your overlords. And that's hard.
So I live near Teamster City. There's a bunch of union halls kind of near me on the near west side. And I just want to like go there and be like, can I just hang out? Like, can I do a strike at a place I don't work at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably lots of smarter people than me have probably written about that. But I'm sure if you went there and you were like, I'm here to be another like body on the line, I'm sure they would either be like, hey, get the fuck out of here, or they would be like happy to radicalize you on
further
whatever it is they're doing.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
Mike, it seems like a lot of the things that we've been discussing today share similar themes. You talk about the Dwarf Fortress being a system that creates data that you then use in your brain to make a fun story. You talk about blaseball, which is a strange machine that creates data that you use to make your own story. You talk about being on an RPG where you take data in the form of a rule book, and with your friends take that data and use it to make your own story. You talk about being a sports fan where you take the data created by men you don't know to make stats and scores and use it to create your own story. It seems like all of these are trying to coalesce into a greater theme. Mike, can you do that for me?
I'm really fascinated by devices that aid with storytelling creation, and I think I have gone to great lengths to extract stories out of these systems because I just am unable to sit down and fucking write a book myself. That's like that's the ultimate storytelling, is just storytelling. And I think I will literally do anything to avoid just sitting down and writing my novel, which at the end of my life, I would love to have manifested guys onto paper so that I can one day get logged into someone's Goodreads to help them hit their KPI of how many books they're trying to read, and that I may even get at least a 4.14 out of 5 stars average on Goodreads with a minimum of 25 reviews. I'm not asking for, I'm not asking to get a film adaptation. I just want some weirdo who uses Goodreads to help them read more and discover cool books to one day find a story of my guys. But until then, I'm going to play role-playing games.
Like Dwarf Fortress is made to procrastinate from writing your novel. Like that's its real purpose. It's so novels don't get made.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's preventing the next great American novel from happening. Not that I would write that. Someone else who's playing Dwarf Fortress. It's stopping them from doing that. For me, it's preventing probably a decent kind of funny sci-fi book from getting made.
God damn it! That's what I want to read more than ever. This I think does unlock something in my brain where I was seeing what you were getting at, but I couldn't quite hold it in my mental hand. Because I'm like, all of these methods, because when you were describing, having a role-playing account for the blaseball player, to me, like that, like I felt the weight of that as though like a boulder was being placed upon my shoulders. Just like, God, I could never do that. And then I realized that I just spent like the last year writing 250 pages of script for the next Sicko's secret project. And I'm like,
That's
in
guys.
a sense, yeah.
That's
in the sense, was I not
guys.
role playing as every character in the script when I was writing the script? And I'm just like,
That's so true.
Mike is you seem to be. I hesitate to say fascinated by, because that seems like it's belittling it. But you are taken with methods by which storytelling in an unconventional sense can be facilitated, and I see the appeal, because one, it is, unlike just writing a fucking book, you have a helper. The game is helping you. And also, there comes with that the novelty of this strange tool, this wild machine in your hands. What is it going to do? Isn't it odd? Isn't it amazing that it makes its little sounds and has its little data pop out? Incredible. And so, novelty plus a helper really makes doing a job way easier. Writing a book sucks. Like, the only reason I'm able to get these big scripts out is because I'm like, it's for my podcast. When it comes to like writing fiction for any other reason, it's never happened in my life.
Yeah, it's like meat hammer, specifically on the head of the nail, because I feel like for whatever reason, I need the like validation, or I need to have like a mysterious box that I interact with, that I'm like, if I don't believe in myself, I believe in this other thing.
Yes.
And I can really believe in this other thing. And like in my believing in this other thing and like treating that like it is gospel, or like it's some powerful magic, I'm able to like focus and forget about whatever hang-ups I have about just sitting down and writing my shit like from 0 to 100. And you know what? I think all authors probably have some form of that, unless like no one's just sitting in a blank room and like writing Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. They're like reading a lot of books and getting inspired and talking to editors probably and spouses over late nights, talking about what does this character do, and that's their Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
But their Dwarf Fortress should probably just be Dwarf Fortress. It's the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should probably fire it up with the ASCII original too, because that's like
that's real imagination.
Everything I learned playing the ASCII version felt like I was in a temple and I was dusting off a tablet and I figured out what the fuck it meant.
That's real shit right there, because when you have to like work real hard to do something, you become even more invested and like convinced that the shit means something. Like I know we're wrapping things up, but I just played Case of the Golden Idol. Have you guys heard of that?
I have it on Steam. I'm gonna play it after Pentiment. It's a mystery game, right?
It's a mystery game. It's kind of like the Case of the Obra Dinn.
I love
that's
Obra
what that
Dinn.
game is called. But the idea is like a story is getting told in the background while you figure out what's going on in these scenes, and like through the mystery of solving what's going on in these scenes, it kind of forces you to jump through this hoop that makes the story hit harder, because you're like, the story is better for me having to like figure out what the story is. And that applies to Dwarf Fortress, and even more so with the ASCII stuff. Like I can only imagine that shit hits way harder when you're like really climbing up even steeper of a learning curve.
Also, there's
the view is better at the top.
There's the very simple delight of when you do get to a point of familiarity with the original Dwarf Fortress, where everything was just fucking letters and colors. When you get to that point of familiarity where the graphics actually visually give you information effortlessly,
it feels like a language you learned.
But not only that, you're the Matrix. Like it is literally the Matrix. You literally become Cypher saying, I don't even see the letters anymore. I see mountain,
Blonde,
dwarf,
brunette.
Brunette, dwarf. And that's very badass.
You see that letter A? That is a dwarf going nuts because he can't get his pants on right.
I had a coworker who told me that they thought I looked like Mouse from The Matrix, and for a long time I was offended until this year when I realized, you know what, I do kind of look like Mouse from The Matrix. I even found a picture where Mouse and I like look very similar, and you know what, 2023 I'm leaning into Mouse life.
Mouse is cool. When Mouse died and when I saw it for the first time, I got so sad because I liked Mouse. He was a weird little guy. And I also did not know, because of my young age, that he was offering Keanu Reeves to fuck the robot woman. I did not know that was... So I didn't know that he had a skeezy side. So I thought Mouse was just a straight off the top great guy.
I mean, is it bad to fuck the robot? Mouse was just trying to blast.
Weird. Yeah.
Mouse wanted Neo to blast.
He wanted Neo to blast.
And honestly, considering how grim that world is, like...
You gotta... Well, that's what the whole fucking orgy scene in the big rave in the second one. It's like, this world wants us to be so bleak, but we will instead rave and do it. And everyone's like, yeah.
Do you think Mouse was at that rave, or do you think Mouse was, like, just blasting in the Matrix?
I love Blast.
Did Mouse
blast? The first I've heard it used, I am enamored.
Oh, I feel like you should listen to Neo Scum, because I feel like half of our episodes are just me talking about blasting in different ways. If you're into blasting content,
Neo Scum,
check out Neo Scum. Certainly a lot of blasting.
I love this whole... Because like one of the hoary old tropes of writing tips is like writing's not magic. It's work. It's all just decisions you make. There's no magic. It's all, you just got to put it in and make it happen. There's no lightning bolt of inspiration, and that's true. But it also really sucks because magic's cool and badass. And I think all these systems are just like little magic boxes. And you just open them up and some magic comes out. And now I'm halfway there.
My idea for a Dwarf Fortress mod is that there's like dwarfs that awaken to the fact that they're in Dwarf Fortress.
Oh, yes!
And then are like, I don't know. That's all I've got. There could maybe be a Mr. Smith like proxy that's trying to kill those dwarfs.
Yes.
I guess that's just the environment. It's pretty hostile game.
Be the Matrix. You know what would be really good is if they invented this. See, like, this is a stupid idea, but so many of the systems of Dwarf Fortress seem so much like stupid ideas that they actually made real, and by doing so made them not stupid. It's like they should make a fully 3D rendered like Dwarf Fortress next gen graphic style, and when like one dwarf becomes self-aware and becomes Neo, he can start, if he finds like a Rage Against the Machine record, he can like fly out of the pixel and like become a 3D rendered guy moving around in...
Imagine that exact thing, except they never get more than like the ASCII thing, and it's just like a giant like lowercase u comes out of your computer and starts like moving like a chess piece through our world.
That would be so badass.
That would be dope, dude. That would be dope. 2023, the year of Mouse, and the year that Dwarf Fortress becomes real. Let's go.
We're the anime sickos, and we're here to say anime is bad in a war crime way.
Yo, thank you to Mike Migdall for going Guesto mode. It was so good.
Thank you so much, Tom and Joe. Thank you. I really needed this outlet to talk about Dwarf Fortress because I've had all of these thoughts in my head, and I did not want to write a lengthy Steam review of Dwarf Fortress where I put all these thoughts to paper. I would much rather have a conversation, and you have given me this opportunity.
I love when people get to walk it out. Like, I have so many video game words that are stuck in me.
Playing video games puts the words in your head, and how are you going to get those out? No one wants to hear them. You need weirdos to listen to it. You have to blast. You suggested, and I thought of it as like a hilarious joke, but now I'm like, is it real? Will I do it? You suggested that I play Dwarf Fortress with my wife using the dual-brained method, in which we are both watching what's happening and making decisions as a team, so as that neither of our idiocies is ever at fault, because there's always a cosigner, you know? And I was like, no, that'll never happen. But now I'm like, should I fucking do that? Because it feels like it is a game that you need to have someone with you so that you can walk it out like as it happens. Be like, this is what's happening. Like, witness that this did happen. There is a vomit moat around my fucking huge tower because they aren't good enough at crossbow yet. Do you see it? And like, yes, I see it. Like, because to have that story in your head, and again, like, who's only a freak sicko is gonna want to hear that, and you just have to walk around with that like rattling in your head, desperate to be erupt forth. But to whom? I think that's the fucking key.
I would have to recommend first, like, with the wife, go consume like Dwarf Fortress stories. There's like a lot of good ones on YouTube.
Yeah. A lot of
that
good
are
comics
kind of
too.
Animated. Yes, the comic like Bronze Murdered, I think is like, or Boat Murdered.
There's
Yeah.
Is
comics.
one of them.
Yeah.
People make really great art out of their Dwarf Fortress stuff, and that has always been what's helped me get over the learning curve, is like consuming people's stories and then having the stamina to figure out how to file your Dwarf Fortress taxes, which is truly what it feels like when you first start out. It's like you're like, oh my god, what? I have a podcast that I now have to pay taxes on. Like, well, how does a Schedule K1 work?
Man, I
why are my
hate
dwarves unhappy?
the fucking podcast. We're getting tax forms because we do jokes. It's like, what? Make me want to never do a joke again. Why don't you?
It fucking sucks. Every year we pay our taxes late because we can't figure it out, and then I have to pay like fines and stuff, and I'm just like, this is not why I want to tell stories.
It's we were wrapping up the show, weren't we? We get folks here at Anime Sickos, we get so wrapped up in the fun thrill of telling stories with these unconventional methods. Did you do improv? I mean, it feels like you can't not have. I think you've said so already.
I used to do like live improv. Now I just, fuck around, I guess, online. And I do a podcast. Neoscum, like I said earlier, like so long ago, we're in hiatus right now while we figure out what we're going to do next. But we've got
you're in the cocoon,
big things planned.
But you'll become a beautiful butterfly.
Or, yes, let's say we'll become a big butterfly, hopefully. One day, like I mentioned, I would love to have written a book. Until then, I'll just play Dwarf Fortress. But if I ever do, check me out on Goodreads, because I will turn my my slop-consuming Goodreads page into an author page one day. And if we're friends, you'll see the shit I'm talking about there. Also, I'm on Twitter, even though Twitter is like really just an awful place nowadays. Getting worse by the second. By the time this comes out, who knows what the fuck's gonna happen. But my Twitter name is It's Migdall Time. I get really manic and post a bunch like once a month.
Yeah, he's a good follow. I'll tell you what. There's some high caliber gags coming out of that.
Yeah.
Fucking.
Thank you.
You have a very
Background,
good
man.
RuPaul tweet. I think about the RuPaul tweet all the time. We did actually. This is a very much everything tweet. It is as follows.
This is like an everything bagel. It's like all the flavors at once. Finally.
I will not be playing Cyberpunk 2077. Crowd
Yay!
cheer.
I'll be the crowd. Yay!
Because I'm too busy reading Harry Potter.
Boo!
I mean reading like insulting.
Yay!
A word I learned from RuPaul,
Boo!
who I only know from my work in the fracking industry.
Boo!
Enforcing regulate.
And I got cut off by the character limit, which this tweet only could have come in the post 140 character Twitter,
Yeah.
which, as a longtime Twitter head, every time I go over 140 characters, I feel like disgusted with myself.
Like this isn't
I feel
earned. Like I don't deserve this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm cheating. And now Elon, Mr. Baby Bitch himself, wants to like make it 4,000 characters. I've seen rumblings of that.
Because
That would really be the death of it.
4,000 characters. You're thinking 4,000 consecutive characters. Can you just hit F enter 4,000 fucking times? I'm sure that's gonna happen.
Yup. I mean, yeah, just like visually, it's
yeah.
going to make scrolling awful because there's going to
I
be.
imagine there's going to be an expand function. Like, that's the only way I can imagine. And I'm sure people will find funny ways to, like, joke around. But meantime, I'm going to try to figure out, like, what Mastodon is, I guess. I don't want to figure out what Mastodon is, but if it really becomes the only option, I guess I'll fucking do that. But hope you guys all have a good day when you listen to this, and hope you are able to find the stories in your own life. And because you know what? They're happening. You just got to find a way to see it.
They're happening in Dwarf Fortress, a game you can purchase.
Yeah. And they're also
Yes.
happening in the Anime Sicko Secret Project to be released, question mark. It's like in a couple months. It's going to be really good. Anyway, This has been kicked ass. This has been so good. I love it. It's late though,
Thank you.
so I'm gonna have dinner.
Have dinner.
I've been
I'll
Tom.
stop talking now.
I've been Tom, an anime sicko.
I've been Joe, an anime sicko.
And I've been Mike, an anime sicko.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.